Brooklyn Councilman Justin Brannan chairs the Finance Committee. Now he wants to use those skills to be the city's chief money guy. So I have to ask you, you're, I think, the only candidate in the race that's talking about corruption, and you have an anti-corruption bill. I think you should tell me and the viewers about it.
Sure. Thanks, Marcia, for having me, as always. Yeah, I put out a plan to really beef up the comptroller's office, to start a public integrity unit, and also to publish a list of the 25 worst actors in the city, vendors. There's a lot of contractors, people that are getting city money that should not be getting city money.
Why not?
Because they're corrupt, because they're connected to friends and family of people in power, and that's not how we're supposed to do business.
How do you stop them from getting contracts if they're the low bidder?
Because sunlight is the best disinfectant for corruption, right? The public needs to know who the city is doing business with. The same way that Jumani, the public advocate, publishes the worst landlords, people need to know the city, your tax dollars are going to these vendors who are corrupt or in cahoots or friends and family of the administration or people in power. That's not how we should do work. I believe very much in giving more opportunity, especially to MWBEs. And right now you have corrupt vendors and contractors who are, let's take .go, for instance.
I was going to say, what about that?
Right, so .go, okay? I've got hundreds of nonprofits that do amazing life-saving work, right, that are waiting to get paid for work they did years ago. Meanwhile, .go is getting $450 million checks like we're handing out candy on Halloween. It's wrong. It's got to stop. And the public I think knowledge is power in these situations. The public needs to know who the city is doing business with. And I think if you saw that, people would be appalled.
So as comptroller, can't you decide to not certify those contracts?
Of course.
Don't you have that power?
Yes, you have it. You're right, absolutely. You have the power not to certify. But I think there's two things here, because we're sort of in there's a lot of false choices with this administration. We need robust oversight on our contracting, our vendors. You can't just pump this stuff out. But you can have both. You can get nonprofits and vendors paid on time for work they already did, but you also need to have robust oversight. And right now it seems like the robust oversight is only reserved for the nonprofits that are doing great work, and the checks, we're just writing blank checks to companies like .go, and it's wrong, and I think New Yorkers are fed up.
I think the comptroller could do something about that.
Agreed.
So let me ask you this, since we're talking about corruption and other things. The mayor of the city of New York on Friday went to Washington yet again to meet with President Trump to push for priorities for New York City and to ask for money, I guess, to stop the budget cuts that are expected from Washington. How do you feel about the mayor yet again cozying up to President Trump? Is it a good idea because a good relationship with the president can help? Or does it bother you at all? I
think if the president was sane, you'd like to work with him. But I think it's clear that he wants to destroy New York City. He hates everything that we stand for. And Elon Musk, who's an unelected oligarch, is coming after our seniors, coming after Medicaid and Medicare and our veterans benefit, the 9/11 health fund. Look, I don't know if the mayor has some inside knowledge because he's in cahoots with the Trump administration that Trump is not going to try to claw back even more money. But we've already seen in the past couple of months, Trump and his guys are trying to claw back hundreds of millions of dollars from our budget. And frankly, this administration, it takes weeks to even sue to get that money back. So I would love for the mayor to come back from Washington with a giant bag of money for the city of New York. That would be great. But everything we're seeing so far is that even if the mayor is compromised or colluding with the federal government, with the Trump administration, we're not getting anything out of it because we're still getting cut. So it doesn't make sense. Why is the mayor so afraid to attack the president and stand up for the city of New York where he's not even getting anything from it?
But maybe he thinks it's good policy and good politics to try to get the president on New York's side and try to ameliorate some of the expected cuts.
In a normal world with a normal person, I would agree. But what I'm saying is I think we're already seeing that the toothpaste is out of the tube. Trump is coming for us, right? He's coming for our money. And Eric Adams playing nice with Trump, this is where it's got us. It's got us nowhere. So I don't think this is a situation where you can play nice with this guy. This guy's a bully, and you got to fight fire with fire. You have to have that killer instinct to fight back.
So one of the third rails of New York City, and is certainly for the comptroller, is the idea of the inequity in property taxes.
Oh, my God.
And I wonder, is there anything that the comptroller can do? Obviously, the mayor has to take a role in this as well. but is there anything the comptroller can do to try to change the property tax system so that it's more fair?
Sure, this is a great issue. I mean, I've been yelling about property tax reform since I became an elected official. I'm from Southern Brooklyn. We pay some of the highest property taxes in the city. You know, I have neighbors who pay more than people on the Upper West Side or in Brownstone, Brooklyn pay. And I think it's inequity hidden in plain sight. Everyone agrees that our property tax system is busted and broken and dysfunctional. The comptroller has a massive bully pulpit to go up to Albany to get our colleagues buy-in. I mean, the state legislature is also bought in. The city council is bought in.
Can't the city change the property tax system itself?
It depends on who you ask. There are things that we could do, but the problem is that the whole system is so rusted and the inequity is so calcified that just tweaking and nibbling around the edges is not what we need. We need wholesale reform, and I'm confident that we can get there. If we have a mayor who actually can build relationships in Albany and can make sure property tax reform is on that to-do list, we could actually get it done. The city council is ready. I would be ready as comptroller to get that done, to build that broad coalition from folks from Park Slope to Staten Island who are like, look, there's some of us have been paying too much for too long. Some of us have been getting a break for too long. And those of us who have been paying too much are subsidizing those who are paying too little.
But see, when Bill de Blasio became mayor, and he was mayor for 8 years, one of the first things he said when he was elected was property tax reform.
Yeah.
Was he able to do it? Did he even appoint a commission? Answer, no.
No. Well, what de Blasio did was that, like, right when he was almost done leaving office that December, he put out the blueprint, which is at least we have.
He said he was going to do it on day
Agreed.
one.
This is the thing. I think what happens is you campaign in poetry and you govern in prose, right? So
sounds like Mario Cuomo.
So as soon as you get in there, suddenly you realize, oh my God, I need these other 95 things from Albany. So property tax reform gets thrown off the sheet. It's got to stay on that list. It's got to be a top priority. When I'm comptroller, it's going to be one of my top priorities.
So when you look at Brad Lander and the work he's done as comptroller, what has he done well and what has he done not so well?
So I think Brad has done a good job with demystifying the role of the comptroller, right? No one knows what the comptroller does. I think over the next 4 years, with the constant threat from Washington and federal cuts, people are going to have to learn very quickly what their local treasurers and controllers do. I think Brad has done a good job with demystifying the office, bringing people in, right? He does audits. He'll bring in NYCHA residents to talk about what these audits found and real life experience. That's great because you want to, it's a very wonky position. You want to universalize it a bit because, look, this ultimately comes down to tax dollars, right? It comes down to how is the city spending your hard-earned tax dollars. I would say, look, one of the things I think is interesting is that as soon as controllers inevitably, as soon as they get elected, they immediately start thinking about running for mayor. I'm not running for mayor. If I wanted to run for mayor, I'd be running for mayor right now, right? I think you and I are the only people not currently running for mayor. So I want to be the controller. I want to do a good job at it. And I think over the next 4 years, it's going to be a very, very important role.
One of the things the comptroller does control are the pension funds.
Sure.
And sometimes controllers use it to have political positions. I wonder if you think that's a good thing. There have been some calls, for example, that the pension funds should divest from Tesla, for example. There are times when there's been calls to divest from companies that do business with Israel. How do you see the comptroller using that position as head of the pension fund?
Sure. I mean, your number one responsibility as comptroller is to serve as fiduciary and custodian of the city's 5 pension funds, right? 5 very distinct pension funds. They all have different risk appetites, different ideologies. It's almost a $300 billion pension system. I do not believe in playing politics with people's money. Your number one goal has to be at least achieving that mandated 7% return for retirees to have a dignified and stable retirement. But you have to make sure that your investments are aligned with your values. I've called to divest from Tesla because I think Elon Musk is a maniac, and I think the stock is a bad stock. We own almost over $1 billion in Tesla.
You own $1 billion worth of Tesla?
The city of New York has $1 billion in Tesla. This guy spends his days trying to kill us, and we're investing in his company. It's insane. We got to get the hell out of Tesla. So our investments have to align with our values, but I'm not here to play politics. I'm here to say, look, the stock is a dog. Elon's insane. We've got to get out of it because this is my mom's pension fund. I got to get out of this thing.
You think it sends a bad message?
Absolutely. We need to be investing in people who believe in the city of New York.
We'll have to leave it right there for now, but we'll be right back. We are back with Brooklyn Councilman Justin Brannan. So I have another issues question for you. Retirees in New York City are very upset by a move that was made to put them in a different healthcare system, and there's been calls to change it. I wonder where you stand on that.
Yeah, I am completely against changing retirees' health care. Look, if you want to have a conversation about changing the benefits of someone who starts working for the city tomorrow morning, that's fine, right? But for someone that's been retired for 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, what they signed up for, that's a covenant that the city makes with the retiree, that city worker. I'm worried about Medicare Advantage because I see that Trump seems to like it. That's a red flag for me. It's also another step towards privatization, which is what we do not want, right? I want to get to a place of universal health care, not privatization of city worker health care. I think Medicare Advantage is a dog. I think it's wrong to try to pull the rug out under retirees. Look, these workers helped build this city. They were here at some of the darkest times. The folks that served there in the 70s, and they deserve a dignified, stable retirement. These people have been retired for decades. To now call them up and say, hi, I'm changing your health care, it's completely insane. And P.S., we've got the money to pay for it, right? It's $600 million a year. When the mayor, City Hall first came to us and said, we've got this great idea to kick the retirees off of their health care and change them in the middle of the night because it'll save us this money. Well, P.S., for the past 3 years, we've been paying it. Now, I will say this, Marcia. We do have to have a real conversation about the cost of health care in this country and in this city.
Yes, we do.
I mean, the cost of hospitalization and prescription drugs, it's completely insane. So I don't want to ignore the forest for the trees here because it is a problem. We're living longer, and therefore our health. We're relying on healthcare even longer.
These retirees retired knowing that they were going to get
whatever you retired. Forget about whatever you retired with. Whatever you were hired with, that's what you were promised. And the day you retire, whether it's 10, 20, 50 years, that's what you deserve until you're 100 years old.
How do you feel about a rent freeze?
Look, I think Look, everyone has finally landed. We're all on the same page that the city has become insanely unaffordable. I think the idea of raising rent on people at a time like this is completely nuts. I also understand landlords are like, look, I want to make fixes to my apartments, and I can't do that if I'm not. You have to understand there's an ecosystem here, right? When I pay my rent, that money goes to the landlord to pay for the electrician and the plumber and all that stuff. There's also a lot of renters and tenants out there who feel like, you're going to raise my rent. They've never fixed my apartment once, so what am I paying more for? And this is one area where the city actually has control over what happens to people's rent. So the calls for a rent freeze are right.
So how do you feel about crypto?
I don't know. It seems like a scam to me. I mean, if I can't take the money out and put it in my hand, I'm old school. Like, I think it's just numbers on a page. Like, is the money really there or is it not? I don't think the city should have anything to do with crypto. The blockchain technology is interesting, but crypto, no.
So I guess as a controller, you wouldn't be investing in crypto?
I don't think so. I think there's plenty of better things we could invest in.
So when you go out in the street and you campaign, you talk to people.
Yeah.
What are people saying are the things they care about and the things they want you to focus on?
It's too expensive to live in the city. Every day I hear from someone saying, I'm considering moving because it's easier to raise a family somewhere else. It's easier to buy a house somewhere else. It's easier to start a business somewhere else. We're losing working families. I think there's this perception that New York City, we're hemorrhaging rich people. The rich are fleeing the city. It's a bunch of baloney. You know who's fleeing the city? Working families, because they can't afford to live here. And I believe there's two pillars to our unaffordability crisis right now. Number one, it's lack of affordable housing, right? We have a very simple supply and demand problem. Thankfully, more people want to live here than we have places for them to live. We've got to fix that. Number two, it's childcare.
I was going to get to that. Do you think they'll ever have universal childcare?
I have a plan to invest pension funds and get a great return for retirees. It's a real estate play. Invest in the creation of an early childcare, universal childcare system for our city. It's a no-brainer.
How would the city make money on that?
The city would invest in the buildings to set up universal child care centers, and we make a return on that investment. It's a real estate play. It's great. I mean, I think
it would be a good investment for pension funds.
Absolutely.
You have to be stable, and you have to guarantee people have.
You have to get at least a 7% return. So you work with the trustees. If I can't get you at least 7% or 7.25%, then we're not going to do it. But investing in childcare would be a boon for the economy, a boon for the workforce. How many families, how many moms tell me I've got to decide between my job, my childcare, my doctor's appointment, where I can't do it. And that's part of the squeeze that people are feeling. And the city right now, we've got to step up. It's a free market failure. This childcare system is not working. It needs subsidy. It needs the government intervention. And I want to get that done.
So do you have any pet peeves? Not to change the subject or anything.
Pet peeves? No, I'm a pretty easygoing guy.
So how do you make tough decisions?
That's your job as a politician. If I wanted to make everybody happy, I'd sell ice cream, right? I mean, like, your job as a politician is to make some tough decisions. You're elected to be a leader. You have to listen. You have to make sure you're building that consensus and hearing all sides of an argument. But then your job as a politician is to lead and to try to get people to buy into that. And look, especially at a time like this, with the threat of the federal government, I believe that there are things more important for politicians than just getting elected or reelected. Our responsibility now is to use the privilege of our power to stand in that breach between the federal government and our most vulnerable. There's a lot of people out there who are scared to death that this administration in Washington is coming for them. Yeah. People like me need to stand in that breach and stand up. And if that's unpopular with some people, I don't care. It's my job.
So what's the toughest decision you ever had to make as a politician?
God. Figuring out where to eat with my wife at night. I mean, there's always stuff that comes up that, it's every day is something new. I mean, I try to always center myself on, will the decisions I make today make life easier for working people? For the average person who has no connection to City Hall, they're not well connected, they're not powerful. How do I make their life easier? If you center yourself around that, you can't go wrong.
Last question. What's the best job you've ever had?
I was a bouncer at a bar. That was pretty fun. It was fun. Yeah, it was cool. It was boring, but it was fun.